Big Brother is no longer watching you. Now it's Mummy and Daddy all day, every day. Let's get talking about Black Mirror Season 4, Episode 2, Arkangel. Arkangel is directed by Jodie Foster and written by Charlie Brooker, of course. And this episode is all about parental surveillance, looking after your children and protecting them, censorship, as well as the invasion of privacy in a post-digital age. How far would you go to protect your children? Most parents would say pretty far, but this episode shows you what can happen when protection becomes the problem. This episode starts off with a distressed mother called Marie, who is played by Rosemarie Dewitt, who loses her 3-year-old daughter, Sarah, in a playground, and oh my god, that's like the worst thing you could think of for a parent, losing a child. What would be running through your head? Is she safe? Is she in the hands of a monster? But fortunately, Sarah is found and she's unharmed, but obviously the mother is not. So Marie decides to get her daughter Sarah implanted with this new monitoring software, which is called Arkangel. This Arkangel technology is implanted into Sarah's temple, and what this technology does is it monitors her vitals and it relays all this information back to this iPad gizmo thing that her mother Marie has. So it can tell Marie if she has any deficiencies or if there's any narcotics in her system, and it also acts as this GPS tracking device, so she can literally pinpoint locate Sarah and her movements wherever she goes. But that's not the most fucked up thing. This Arkangel device lets Marie see exactly what Sarah sees. It's literally a point of view of Sarah's vision, so it relays this information back to the Arkangel device and she can see what Sarah sees. And if Marie wants to, she can turn on this censorship setting which stops Sarah from seeing anything that might be harmful or violent or disturbing. So yeah, it would distort the image that Sarah sees, and it also sort of muffles the sound so she can't hear any swearing. It's advanced fucking technology. Marie uses the Arkangel technology on Sarah through most of her childhood, so Sarah grows up not really seeing or hearing a lot of stuff that might be potentially harmful. But it's advised that Marie takes Sarah off this Arkangel device so she can grow up and be exposed to stuff. And then we watch Sarah grow up into her teenage years, but then a series of unfortunate events leads Marie to turning the Arkangel device back on, and it has some disastrous and disturbing consequences. I spoke to a lot of people about this series of Black Mirror, and a lot of people said that this one didn't really stand out for them, but for me, I really loved this episode. I really liked Arkangel because it was an episode that had quite a lot to say about parental monitoring and censorship. It raises an interesting debate about where the line is for parental supervision and protecting your children. At what point is it too much? Obviously, every parent, or almost every parent, has a fundamental need to protect their children from harm's way. But the sad reality is that kids are exposed to all kinds of bad stuff from a very early age. Particularly today's children who have the World Wide Web right at their fingertips. My 3-year-old niece, Poppy, is already so iPad savvy, it's scary. But that's why I liked Arkangel, because it might actually teach some parents that overprotecting your kids can be just as damaging as a laxed parental style. This may sound really wrong, but kids being exposed to stuff that might upset them is a good thing in a sense, because it immunizes them against the harsh realities of adult life. It's kind of like a trade-off, because you lose a little bit of your innocence, but you build up a tolerance against the more taboo things of life. Violence, bad language, pornography, blood, and death are all part of the fabric of life, and Arkangel basically explores the idea of what would happen if a kid wasn't exposed to these things from an early age. I used to work at American summer camps, and there were some really overprotective parents which I know personally would not think twice about implanting their kids with this sort of technology if they knew it would keep them safe. If you can electronically tag your pets, then why not your kids, eh? This episode is really smart because the technology in it is not that much of a stretch from the technology we have now. Nowadays, parents have to have filters and parental locks on their broadband to stop their kids from being exposed to the more seedy stuff on the internet. And a lot of parents are spying on their kids now by tracking the GPS in their children's phones, which a lot of kids probably would see as an invasion of privacy, and this episode sort of explores that. When Marie starts getting worried about where Sarah is, she opens the Arkangel software again to try and track her, and she gets way more than she bargained for, and leads to one of the most disturbing moments in the entire Black Mirror franchise, when she watches her daughter having sex from her point of view. Oh, scarred for life. Thank you again, Charlie Brooker. But that's sort of the point of this episode, because it shows that not giving your kids privacy can be really damaging to a parental-child relationship. It's an issue of privacy versus safety, and the line in between the two of them isn't clear. And I'm sure it's even harder to distinguish when you're an actual parent. As someone that doesn't have kids but does want them someday, it kind of made me think, would I put this sort of technology in my children for my own peace of mind? And I did internally debate, and I love when a Black Mirror episode makes me do that. As far as negatives go for this episode, one thing that I did kind of take issue with was that the teenage version of Sarah was so normal. She just seems so perfectly well adjusted despite being so coddled and protected when she was a kid. Personally, I think it would have been more interesting to see the sort of psychological effects this software had on her, but no, she was just fine. It's only towards the end of the episode where we see the violent, irrational side of Sarah that we saw earlier in the episode come out. But it would have been so much more interesting to see how it was sort of nuanced into her personality. But for some reason, she just seemed very normal, and that didn't quite add up in my head. But other than that, I actually got a lot out of this episode. I thought it was very clever how the whole narrative came full circle with Marie screaming Sarah's name like she did at the beginning of the episode. I thought that was kind of a clever touch, that the very technology that she used to protect her child is what drove her away. A delicious bit of irony that she became the monster that she was trying to protect Sarah from. But the performances were powerful, particularly from Rosemarie Dewitt. Jodie Foster's indie film style of direction really kept me engaged. And it was nice to see an episode of Black Mirror which explored a relationship between a daughter and a mother, and it wasn't portrayed as perfect. It was very complex and a bit broken, which I thought was really cool. No relationships are perfect, but often mother-daughter relationships are always portrayed as good and pure, which this wasn't. The ending was bleak and it left me with a lot to think about, so guys, Arkangel gets a score of 8.5 out of 10. So my quick question for you today, guys, is what did you think of Arkangel? Did it rattle you as much as it did me? And if you're a parent, what did you think of this? Did you think that Marie was justified in putting this technology in Sarah? Would you do the same? I would love to know. Whatever you think, please do let me know in the comment section below because I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to check out my other episode reviews of Black Mirror here and here. And if you want to be updated with my other episode reviews of season 4, be sure to click the subscribe button. It's right there, guys. Go on. You know you want to. And as always, thanks so much for watching, guys. For more things related to movies, TV, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Airfield, and I'll see you next time.